Hello, 7AC down in the basement here, once again with two versions of a model that Josh Bixler that I've modified with some of the techniques that Ed uses in Experimental Airlines. And I thought I'd give you a look because they're a little bit different once you put them together. There's two versions of the model called the Mini Aero. I think the reason that they were called the Mini Aero has to do with the power plant. If you take a look, notice that this is not one of the standard power packages that Flight Test offered. This is an old Blue Wonder motor. Okay, here's our Blue Wonder motor, and the difference should be pretty obvious right away. They both weigh about the same weight. They both weigh around 24 grams apiece, but as you can see, the Blue Wonder is mounted with a mounting device that kicks it out probably 3/4 of an inch from the surface to which it's mounted, which is much farther aft than the 2204 type motors. And that's part of the reason for cutting an additional ½ inch off of the foam and is right here in the U. This is actually cut about a ½ inch deeper into the wing than the standard Mini Aero. And the reason for that was an attempt with heavier weight back here to get more weight forward so that the model would balance. The other difference is right here. Now, when Josh designed this wing, it was a pure wing, and you could put it together as a slope soarer, and there would be no center pod. He also offered a version, it's the same version, but simply cut an inch off the upper surface of the wing, and that made room for a narrow pod. This model is a bit wider yet. I took another ½ inch off on either side. You can see the original plans provided about 3/4 of an inch on either side, or an inch and a half width for the instrument pod. I cut back another ½ inch on either side, which gave me about an inch and a quarter on either side. So I had about 2½ inches for my instrument pod when I built the red Aero. That was more than enough room for the ESC, the receiver, and a 1000 milliamp battery, which is what I use to fly this model. I have chosen to put on one of the micro FPV transmitter camera combinations. It uses a tiny single cell 3.7 battery that I just tape on in the back. It's rudimentary FPV, but it works. One of the other things that's different about this model than Josh's primarily is that instead of using the foam all the way through to form the cargo bay, this is a gift card, simply rolled into shape and then glued on both sides with a little extra duct tape to hold it on. Same thing's true here. This is basically an enlarged gift card. It's got Velcro on either side, and it provides access to the battery compartment, the ESC, and the receiver. This is a pretty good flying model. I'll furnish you some video of this model in flight. Say when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, you can have...
Not doing it. Okay.
Now that we've looked at the mildly enlarged Mini Aero, I'm going to introduce you to one that's been enlarged quite a bit more. This one, as you can see, instead of having the 2-inch or even the narrow inch cargo bay, is going to be configured for one that's 5 inches deep. This model, like the one that I built earlier, is going to use the Hobby King Blue Wonder motor for no other reason than that's what I happen to have available laying around in older models. So, like the white version over there, this one is a half an inch deeper, again to try to move that motor forward and provide a little better balance. There's also two other modifications that are going to be apparent to you right away. One is cutting the upper wing halves back to form the pod. I actually extended the lower surface of the wings another inch on either side in order to form my cargo bay. When I did that, I had some concern about the viability of simply foam board spars. You can see the spars here and here. They're pretty beefy, and I didn't have any concern there. But where the model joins the two wing halves together, I kind of hesitated at making a foam board spar. So what I did was, and this is again familiar to you Experimental Airline builders, that's a piece of carbon fiber arrow shaft that goes across. The limiting factor was the ability to stick it in. I did that after I taped the two wing halves together. And so I was limited to, it's about 6.5 inches long and just barely reaches from the inner edge of the spar on that side to the inner edge of the spar on this side. Except for those changes, this is pretty much a standard mini arrow. In addition to enlarging the space for the cut, I also, as you can see here, added an inch on either side. Here's our throat or tongue depressor installed right behind the carbon arrow shaft spar, as you can see. Now we've installed the two formers that are going to strengthen our aft end, and they're also going to form a power pod. At this point in the build, we've now tripled the front end of our equipment pod, and we're ready to put in the foam core that's going to form the center part of our front nose wing. What I've got here is a 1.5 by 3, what is it? 1.5 by 3 3/4 by an inch deep. So all I have to do is set that in at the very front and mark on either side, which will be my template for sanding this piece of styrofoam. After a tiny bit of sanding and covering with packing tape for a little extra strength, we're ready to glue the front piece that will form the reinforcement for our hatch cover, our pod cover actually, and form. We are ready now to start rolling our centerpiece that's going to cover the equipment pod. So we take a piece of dowel, and all we have to do is gently form that with our hand. Go both ways. Doesn't take very much. Continue rolling a little bit more. And that should just about do it. Here we have our hatch cover all cut out and the Velcro that will keep it closed stuck on, and we are ready to put our power pod in and mount our Blue Wonder. Okay, as you can see, we have pretty much finished up our arrow. We have the ailerons, I guess they're not really ailerons, installed with our servos and our linkages and the vertical stabs in place. We've got our power pod pushed fully in and our Blue Wonder motor attached. Because we have another inch on either side with this model, it's 2 inches wider than the original Mini Aero. We can swing a bit bigger prop. We have a 7.6 on. We could actually go to an 8. And the objective here was to create a bigger power pod to carry the 1300 milliamp battery. And as you can see, I don't have things completely tucked down or the wires folded out of the way, but this version handles the 1300 with no problems. We'll have to take it out now and see how it flies. Thanks for watching.
Got that good.